Recently, I saw an artist that does a lot of very good figures just by using clay, and suddenly I got really inspired to try this stuff out myself. And let me tell you, I almost got insane, okay? This shit was so hard to do, and honestly, I don't think it turned out any good. But that's why I'm making this video, cause it's absolutely okay to make mistakes and everybody starts somewhere, right? And who knows, maybe this video will help out someone who wants to start this stuff. So let's just jump straight into the video, okay? The very first thing I did, of course, was thinking what figure do I actually want to make. And I didn't have to think long until I found Kaido as the answer. Now, why Kaido? Really simple, I just like Kaido. I'm already watching One Piece the second time right now, and I really enjoyed it, so Kaido, okay? Now, the first thing I sculpted was his weapon, because I thought it would be easier to do the weapon first until I get to anatomy and all that stuff. But this thing was already more than just hard enough. And I didn't record making the weapon because I wasn't sure if I want to make a YouTube video out of this or not. But after the weapon, I started to record it because no matter how this turns out, I wanted to share the process and, don't know, embarrass myself on the internet, you know? So after the weapon, it was time for me to go on to the main body. And this was the first time I actually used aluminium foil. And my man, this was first of all a material saver, and it helped with retaining the shape a lot. Because if I press into the clay, you know, physics, it goes out on the other side. And with aluminium foil, it kind of blocks that. So this was very useful for that. And to be honest, I'm not happy with how this one turned out, because it absolutely does not represent the knowledge I have about volumes and 3D space and anatomy, and I just couldn't get to work the clay like I wanted it to work, you know? This is not like Blender or ZBrush where you can just simply adjust things. No, clay is a much different thing. I can't really explain it, but I couldn't really get it to work the way I wanted it to work, you know? And so this made the process a lot more difficult than I thought. So big respect to all you guys that actually work with clay. Holy moly, I was turning insane with this shit. Now same goes with the arms. Like, they just don't look the way I wanted them to look, you know? In terms of three-dimensionality and anatomy. I think I could have worked these things out much better in Blender or ZBrush or something similar. I mean, I've never used ZBrush, I've only used Blender. So on the next day I bought some wire and I used aluminium foil so that I could finally try to get the legs right. And they worked out better than the last time. I'm still not happy with these legs. Like, the volumes are totally off, especially in the butt area and the lower leg area, so like calves, etc. Ditch these areas, okay? They are all off. Again, it's not that I don't know anatomy. I think over the years I have acquired some pretty decent anatomy knowledge, but this stuff was just beyond hard, okay? Probably the biggest challenge I've had in years. I don't know if the problem was my clay, because I bought it at the dollar store and it wasn't really expensive and it was really easy to mold, like it wasn't really hard and it was cracking really quickly. So when I let it dry, it got cracks really quickly and it broke really easily too. For me, it felt much closer to plaster. You know, like the one you get when you break a bone or something to support it. It felt more like this to me. And the clay was giving in really easily too. So when I did the things like the obi belt, I put it on first. It had a pretty good shape, like it looked nice and roundish like you would see in the anime. But after I let it sit and dry, the weight of the clay weighed it down and then it got compressed and it got sunken into the shape more, and now you wouldn't even recognize it's an obi anymore probably. But I don't want to complain about my clay. I'm sure someone with a lot of experience would have gotten a pretty good figure out of this clay too. So it's just my skill issue. Honestly, if I would do this again, I would just use some wire to block out the pose and to get his balance right, because when you look sideways at him, he would stand like this, so I have to balance him to be straight. Otherwise, he would fall over, you know? So his center of mass and how he stands was also pretty wrong. So I would have needed to work these things out in the first construction phase. So yeah, if I do this again, make a wire mannequin first, and then put on foil and then clay. If you wanna do this, don't make the same mistake as me, okay? Like, actually go ahead, buy some wire, make a good mannequin, and then you can go ahead and put on some clay, okay? It's just like drawing. If the construction, the underlying shapes are bad, the whole drawing will fall apart. And I did it wrong with this figure. Now, after I've worked out all of these things, it was time to get to the most difficult part, probably, which were the hands and the head. The hands were an absolute mess, okay? Because I saw that this clay was cracking up and it was breaking off, like the feet probably broke 4 times or 5 times. And his weapon probably broke 5 or 6 times too. So I always had to glue it again with some clay water mixture. So instead of sculpting single fingers and attaching them to the hand, I thought, nope, I will just make a big shape and then I will just carve in some finger shape. And this looked really bad, okay? But I know if I worked out single fingers and attached them, they would have all snapped and broken off instantly when they dried. So individual fingers was a big no-go for me. And with the head, I first thought it was easy. But then I had to sculpt more of his masculine shape and I didn't get it right. Like, I know his stylization, okay? I know how his face works, but I couldn't sculpt it. That was the big problem. And this showed in the end, because when I tried to draw his eyes on, etc. Holy moly, I think I've never drawn such a goofy face in my life. Okay? But wait till the end, you will see, you will see. Now, after all of this, I just had to do his horns, his cape, and his hairs. I know where I went wrong with the hairs. His hairs are more like squarish when you draw them, so like big, massive individual strands, but I made them very round, like you would have when you do a slick back look. But that's not Kaido's hair. And the cape, I was pretty happy with the cape. Because the cape was just making one flat shape and then working out all these little furry hatches, and this was pretty fun. I liked the cape. And the horns, you just made a big cylindrical shape and then you formed it. The horns, they were pretty okay. But the things I struggled the most with were definitely the upper body, the arms, the hands, and the head. Like, these things, I don't get it how people do this accurately. Again, it's not that I don't know anatomy. Just look at this 3D model I did in Blender. But I just couldn't get this right with real clay. Now, with everything dried up, it was finally time to go ahead and put some color on this thing. And honestly, I didn't want to do this anymore. I was so unsatisfied with the result, I thought to myself, I don't want to color it. But I went ahead, took some colors from my mom, and then it was time to paint him. So for the colors, I had a very limited palette, so I had to look up some colors that looked like Kaido and put them on there. So I wasn't really able to mix some colors, etc., because my mom didn't really have a lot of colors left. My sister literally took all of them and she used them for painting, and now we don't have colors anymore. So the colors on Kaido were a bit improvised. But I don't care. I made him with my 2 bare hands, and I'm actually proud of that. Even though the end result doesn't show my knowledge, I'm still proud of it and I enjoyed the process a lot because it was something new and very refreshing. And I think this is the most important part in art. No matter how good or bad something turns out, no matter if you do an illustration or a 3D sculpture, you just have to enjoy the process. If you can't do that, you won't be satisfied with the result. And honestly, after I finished this figure, I just went ahead, assembled it, and I burst out laughing. Because it was just so funny and goofy to look at. I haven't laughed so deeply from my heart. I haven't laughed so deeply from my heart for a very long time. And honestly, this was already worth the 5 days of work. So, recapping some mistakes, if you actually want to try these things out too, use wire at the beginning, okay? Make a decent mannequin so you can build on top of it and not be like me who stacks it, and then shit, it doesn't work out. First, build a decent mannequin. Second, use aluminium foil. Okay, this thing will save you a lot of material and trouble. Third, I don't know about clay and how good different types of clay are, but I don't think my clay was the highest quality. So you should probably invest into some at least decent clay. And lastly, don't expect to be good the first time. This takes years of hard practice to achieve these YouTube worthy results, and you just have to learn to actually embrace the process and enjoy this because the end result won't be good for a very long time, as you can see with mine, okay? So just learn to enjoy the process. This will not only help you with clay working, but with illustrating or with work in general. If you learn to like the work and not the end result, you will be much happier and fulfilled doing it. We always get so many crazy works slapped into our face, no matter if it's illustrations or 3D modeling or environment design, I don't care. We always get the very correct stuff, the top 1%. And it can be really easy to feel discouraged and down if you don't get the same results. So take it easy on you and have a nice day.